For coming tonight. We're going to get started with tonight's LGBTQIA plus town hall, and I'm going to welcome up Mayor Gainey to give some welcoming remarks. All right, thank you.
But I just want to say first, good afternoon to everybody and thank you for coming. And before I begin, the first thing I want to do, Adriana, stand up for a minute. I asked for y'all to give Adriana a hand. It's amazing the work that she's done to get the commission up, to get new commission people on the board. She's worked her behind off, and a lot of times that goes unsaid. It's easy for me to come up here and talk about what I'm going to talk about, some of the accomplishments that we've had. But a mayor can only give a directive. If you don't have the people to go out there and execute the work, it really don't mean anything. And I want to thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right? See, stand up, Baker. Stand up, Officer Baker. I want to thank you for what you've done to making sure that if we get any complaints, you've taken care of them. I think that y'all should give Officer Baker a hand, a round of applause for all the work that he's done. It's an honor to welcome everybody here today. It's incredible to see so many members of our community gathered here today, united behind a common, clear vision to make this the most welcoming city in America. I've been committed to this. And I believe that the only way we do this is when we come together and really celebrate who we are. And it is such an honor for me to be here today with all of you. Matter of fact, Derek said he's gonna come up here. He's gonna start singing in a little bit, give us a little bit of songs and things like that. Our LGBTQIA community has always been an integral part of our city fabric, contributing to the richness of our culture, the vitality of our economy, and the strength of our social bond. Today, as we come together, we're not just here to focus on the progress we've made, but also to talk about the shared responsibility that we have together to continue to move this city forward. And also to talk about some of the things that's going on in DC and how a community we have to work together. Because there's no reason we should have any fear at all. You can't fear a damn fool because you can't give them that type of power over our lives. What we have to do as always as a people come and stand up against the hate that anybody breathes. And when you have someone down there like that that's doing what they're doing, the only thing that beats the power of hate is the power of love. And as long as we continue to demonstrate love, at the end of the day, they say that all things are developed in the darkness to create a pretty picture. And I know the picture that we can create in this city. So I want to make sure that as we go forward and we have these conversations, that we're not scared of DC. We're not nervous about DC. If anything, what DC should do is bring us closer together. It should bring us closer together, not create fear where it tears us apart. We should make sure that we're moving together as a unity. And if we do that, at the end, trust me, his hate will fail and our love will win. But that don't mean we're not going to go through some troubled waters. But together we can walk through them. In recent years, we've taken significant steps to support LGBTQIA businesses by ensuring they have access to city contracts. I'm proud to announce that we have our first LGBTQIA plus subcontractor working on city projects. It's never been done before. It's the first, and we're hoping to double it this year in 2025. We also declared that the city is a sanctuary city for gender-affirming care, which means if gender-affirming health care services become illegal in the United States or in Pittsburgh, my city employees will deprioritize enforcement to the furthest extent possible. This is another way that we can demonstrate to DC that we don't have to work with them. But we got to work together. We got to work together. We don't have to work with them, but we got to work together. You know, I believe that. They had the Underground Railroad, and if the people didn't work together, they wouldn't have moved us out of another movement. So we in the same thing. This is the Underground Railroad, and we're going to bring up top and make it the above railroad and let people know we're not scared. Discrimination, inequality, and prejudice still exists. We know that. We just had something the other day that blew my mind. Over on Mario's on the South Side. That they could just come out and say that openly, with no fear. because they think it's a new day because of who's in the White House. It's not a new day. It's just the same struggle that we've always had. The struggle will never stop, because the only way that you can prove that the struggle is about something is if the struggle continues. But what we got to do during the struggle is to make sure that the struggle works in our favor. And the only way we can make sure that the struggle works in our favor is when we engage it. So don't be scared to engage the struggle. Your partners is waiting on you. Community is waiting on you. We got to engage it. I will continue to support and uplift the recommendations coming out of the LGBTQIA Commission. I encourage all community members experiencing discrimination to contact the Commission on Human Relations. Trust me, if there's something that we can do, we're going to take a move on it. But listen, we don't see everything and we don't know everything. I tell my team all the time, excuse my throat. I tell my team all the time, we don't complain, we execute. Don't complain about the problem. Bring us solutions, not an answer. I tell my team all the time, don't bring me answers. I don't like answers. Because if it don't work, that means we got to go back to the drawing board. But if you bring me solutions, if you bring me solution 1, 2, and 3, we can ensure that we're working towards the right answer. So let's keep creating solutions so that we can continue to grow our population and continue to build a city for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Gainey, and I'm really happy that, as Mayor Gainey was talking about, it really takes a collective, and that is why we are all here tonight, and that is why it is not anyone specific in city government's responsibility to ensure that equity for our community, the LGBTQIA community, is being upheld, but rather it is many different roles and positions within our city government that are upholding those standards. And so I want to start off just by grounding us in why we are here today. But before I get into that, I do just want to mention one thing. Obviously, this is a really difficult time for our community. We are being unfairly targeted. Specifically, trans and non-binary folks are being really unfairly targeted by the federal administration. I don't want to step back from that. I know that most of us are fearful, are angry, are uncertain about our futures. And I want to leave space for us to have those feelings because they are absolutely valid in this moment. But I also want to say that this is not a reactive thing that we are doing here tonight. We have been centering LGBTQIA voices. I want to talk about the importance of the commission and their role. I also want to talk about some of the work we've done within all of the city government to ensure that we are prioritizing equity and inclusion for LGBTQIA folks. But as I said within the flyer, we are also going to talk about your rights and your options if you are experiencing discrimination. And so as we were kind of talking about tonight, I really want to make sure that you know who your LGBTQIA commissioners are. These are wonderful folks that are a part of the community that are volunteering their time to be able to advise the city government on what they should and shouldn't be doing to advance LGBTQIA rights. So I want you to be familiar with them. I also want to talk about some of those efforts we've done within city government to ensure that we are prioritizing LGBTQIA voices and inclusion. And then, as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about what your rights are and what your options are if you experience discrimination. So here's a quick agenda. As I said, we're going to talk about centering our residents, overview of the commission. We're going to be introduced to all of our commissioners that are here tonight, as well as we're going to have some folks from the Commission on Human Relations and Commander Eric Baker talk towards the end about your options if you're experiencing discrimination. So, setting the tone, as I'm sure many of you have seen something along these lines before, it's just community guidelines. We want to ensure that this is a respectful and inclusive space. We are going to have some time for Q&A later. I know many of you submitted questions prior to this town hall. I've worked very hard to ensure all, if not most of those questions are going to be answered by the presentation. But as we get to the end, please make sure that you're sharing space with others, that you're being mindful and thoughtful, that you're being open to different perspectives, and that this is an inclusive space. And as always, I hope nobody is triggered tonight, but if you have to practice self-care and take a moment away, please feel free to do so and come back when you're ready, okay? So first and foremost, talking about centering our residents, the Gainey administration, starting with this man here, really believes in being committed to ensuring that LGBTQ voices are integrated and included in all of the city's operations. And so that means that we go first. We are going to show the protections, the support, the resources that we can provide to our own employees and within our own city services first, so that we can be a representation as to what other institutions, businesses, employers should be doing to include more LGBTQIA voices. We also have been building the foundation for resiliency and growth. So this is not going to be just about being reactive to something that the Trump administration or other state or federal administrations are doing. We want to create a foundation where LGBTQ voices are always integrated into the city. That, for instance, and we will talk more about this, the LGBTQIA Commission is an ordinance. They are not going anywhere. They are a part of the city's fabric. And so regardless of who is mayor, who is governor, who is the president, there should always and will always be LGBTQ folks that are advising Pittsburgh city government. Thank you. And then I really want to hit on this. It is a shared responsibility that we integrate equity into all of our city functions. So I am the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Manager, but that does not mean that I hold equity or inclusivity by myself. It is for me to ensure that we are integrating that into all of the functions of our city government. And so that also means that when we're working with immigrants and refugees, that we're ensuring that there are also LGBTQIA voices included in there. We will talk more about this later, but if anybody has not gotten a Know Your Right card, I want you to pick up one before you leave, and they are Spanish on the back. There's very easy ways to be inclusive to several communities and identities, to be more intersectional in the way that we're thinking about our residents. And then I want to talk a little bit about my role really quickly, because I think it's really important to think about how specifically Mayor Gainey has created my role to ensure that LGBTQ voices are going to be uplifted within his administration. And so as I said, I'm the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Manager. Oh, I don't think I introduced myself. Adriana Brannon, they, them, and she, her pronouns. But the point of my role is that I staff the LGBTQIA Commission. I am also the mayor's LGBTQIA liaison. So when there are issues or concerns or things that the commission knows are important to our residents, I am the direct voice to the mayor to be able to prioritize those needs. And that is something that he has done to ensure that we are not going to be kind of muddled or diminished or become invisible when we're making priorities, plans, and creating future goals. And so I want to start off by saying, you know, the county and the city are very interesting entities in which not everybody might be fully informed as to where the city starts and the county ends and whose responsibility is whose. And so I wanted to make sure that we had some understanding of some of the influence and direct impact that the city can have in certain instances. So I've used this graphic in a lot of different spaces. Basically, direct impact, the things that we can directly control, the things that the commission gives advice on, are things like what we can do as an employer, what we're doing for our city employees, their protections, their rights, their access to resources, as well as what we do as a service provider. So when we have things like the police that are going to be interacting with the public, having someone like Commander Eric Baker who can help to support LGBTQIA folks if they want to report something or they need some advice as far as how to interact with the police, that is a way in which we are bridging that gap, and we're ensuring that our services are being more inclusive and thoughtful to the needs of our community. Oh, sorry, I should go in indirect impact. So indirect impact, the city, on things that we don't have direct influence on, things like healthcare systems and PPS, the education system, it is for us to be able to partner and to advocate and to influence those systems because we don't have direct control, but we understand that our residents are important, and that doesn't mean that we won't still be advocating on their behalf in those instances. And so we'll talk a little bit more about those things later on, but I just want to hit on those points. So I really think it's important to kind of set a foundation for the commission itself. And some of you before coming to this town hall may have not known that we had an LGBTQIA commission, or may not have known what they were up to or what their role is in the city. So I think it's really important to say the commission itself has gone through a lot of change over the last year. I started my role in January of 2024, and at the very same time that I was starting in my role to staff the commission, several commissioners' terms ended at the same time. And so there was a little bit of push and pull there some folks left the commission because their terms had ended. And so we had to get back into being able to have more focus, more purpose, ensure participation for our commissioners. And so over the last year, we've ensured that we're meeting quorum. That is, I know, something very simple, but unless we meet quorum, we can't really vote on anything. We can't create recommendations, statements, resources that are going to be impactful to our community. So ensuring that we have commissioner participation is incredibly important. We've also increased the communication with our community members, not only by holding something like this town hall, but we have somebody from Q-Burg here tonight. We are working with them more directly to ensure that we are able to get information about the commission out to our larger community. And we also went to Pride last year and tabled. There's very easy ways that we can connect more organically with our community members and meet them where they are, and we are trying to do that in a more intentional way. We also, and this was mentioned by the mayor, we have 3 newly appointed commissioners that we had this year. We are going to invite them all up in just a moment, but the importance of this is that we are ensuring that a variety of diverse voices are always going to be upheld on the commission, that we are having a variety of not only sexualities and genders, but also age and race and backgrounds and experiences that can give intersectional advice as to how we should be going forward when it comes to LGBTQIA protections. And lastly, we are empowering our commissioners to act. We really want to give them the tools to ensure that their recommendations, their policies, their ideas, their events are going to have the impact and be meaningful to community members. And so we have worked very, very hard to create recommendations and resources that are going to be able to be pushed, in collaboration with City Council and with the mayor, to be able to become ordinances or policies that will impact our community. So the role of the LGBTQIA Commission, and I've kind of hit on this before a little bit, is they are really there to advise both City Council and the mayor, as well as city departments, on how they can both advance and advocate for LGBTQ rights and protections. And so while that is an incredibly central part of their role, I also want to say that it's a very important part of creating dialogue with our community members, ensuring that people see themselves represented and reflected in the folks that are speaking on their behalf and advocating for their needs. And so that is really what the LGBTQIA Commission is really here for, is to ensure that we are continuing that communication between our community and the city government. So I was warning all of our commissioners for when this came up. So we're gonna do commissioners one by one because somebody has to talk into the mic. Just to remind the commissioners, name, pronoun, and why you are a part of the commission, why it is meaningful to you. So I'll give everybody some space. Actually, Julian, I'm gonna call you up because you're the co-chair. So let's start there.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. And I know we have to. Oh, my phone's talking. We have to talk directly into this mic, so I'll be quick. But Julian McLean, he, him pronouns. I'm the newly elected co-chair of the LGBTQIA Commission. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I am the program director of True Tea Pittsburgh, which is the space that we're in now. And we're an art and advocacy organization, especially for people of color, LGBTQIA identifying, of course. But yeah, we have on the advocacy side, housing, food pantry, access to education, all sorts of things on that end. And then we make space for artists as well. So dance and visual art and expression is important to us as well. So, and that synergy, the commission, I felt like was right for me. So thank you.
Well, my name is not Calendar. Hi, I'm Alexander Gray. It's a little short.
You can hold it too.
Can I just hold it?
Yeah, just grab it.
My name is Alexander Gray. I am the new outreach chair of the commission. And I grew up here in Pittsburgh. And I know it seems a bit old-fashioned as a place sometimes, but I actually think that's one of our greatest strengths. We know our neighbors. We know who needs our help. And I'm just really looking forward to being a conduit to the community and supporting marginalized communities here in the city of Pittsburgh. I also work at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law in their legal clinics, and am a volunteer with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So thank you all so much for being here, and I look forward to all the things the commission is going to do.
I guess this is the right size for me. I'm Donnie Donovan, and I am a small business owner of Free Will Health and Wellness, which is a personal training gym that focuses on gender-affirming personal training and trauma-informed weight training. I'm also the program manager at Phoenix Fitness that is housed inside PERSED. It's a gym for the trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming community. And that's actually how I met Adriana by our soft opening. So she got to tell me about the commission and what it stands for, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about how I can impact our community, specifically the trans community. And so that's why I'm here, to understand and to have a voice for the community so that things are pushed forward in the right direction. So thank you for being here, and I'm Donnie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lenny Worbovich. I'm a Pittsburgh public school teacher. I'm a social studies teacher at Carrick High School. I've been teaching in the city schools for about 30 years now. I'm a city homegrown too, and a city graduate as well. For about the past 10 or 15 years, I've been working specifically with our queer population. I started the Gender and Sexuality Alliance at Carrick High School. And then I was one of the founding members of the district's Queer Equity Committee, which is a group. There's other teachers like myself, principals, central administration, staff, human resources, one of the assistant superintendents, and we work to support the queer kids and queer initiatives throughout the district. My focus on the commission is educational issues, go figure. But so yeah, that. I was excited to get the opportunity to join the commission. It's been really great, especially the past 6 months to a year when we've really started to get our feet under us. And I'm really excited about the direction we're taking. So thanks so much.
This might be the right size. Should I do this? Hi, my name is Richard Parsakian. I consider myself the elder of this community. I've been around for a while. And thank you, Mayor, for being here, and all of you this is an amazing crowd to see coming together to help support our community. I originally came from upstate New York to Pittsburgh as a VISTA volunteer, and I worked with nonprofits and low-income families to offer them architectural services. I have a degree in architecture. But I've had a LGBTQ business for about 39 years right now. I have a vintage clothing store called Eons. I call it a safe space for our community. I welcome people to explore their gender identity when they come to my store. I think it's very important for business owners to do that. I make no judgments, and it's become a wonderful environment to have a conversation. I love to talk to my customers, and it's amazing how much they love to vent what is happening in the world today. I'm very involved in Planned Parenthood, raising money for them, and if you know anything about Planned Parenthood, they also offer gender-affirming care. So it's very important that we partner with other organizations that are helping our community. Very involved in the queer, trans, and non-binary arts community. Very thrilled to see Joseph Hall here, who's a executive director of the Kelly Strayhorn Theater, who has given a space to our community, and we need to support that theater as much as we can.
I would give the rated offering for Richard. Richard.
Hello, so I am the Reverend Derek Tynes. Wow. And I'm so happy that my mayor's here tonight. Yeah. I think we should keep him. And so my pronouns are he, him, and whatever else you want to call me. I am a pastor in the city, and I am commissioned because I really believe that we have too many personalities and not enough community. We have a lot of community spokespersons and leaders and personalities, but I'm constantly being challenged about where is our community. We have multiple gay communities, and we don't always come together and work together and hang out together. And so for me, this commission work is really, it's been 3 years now. So this is actually our first event that we're actually having with the community, and it's really, part of it was COVID, but I think it takes too long to get things done in Pittsburgh, especially amongst our community as well. And there's too much infighting, and I'm really hoping that as we move into the future, that we find a way and do better at coming together and being together across not just black and white lines, but across the L, the G, the B, the T, the Q, and the I. There's just so many different factions, and it's really not okay. And a lot of folks are falling through the cracks. A lot of the people that really need us are not in the groups that we have, or not in our cliques. And so I'm constantly dealing with, in the last few weeks, I've been dealing with so much suicide. And it's because people feel abandoned, and people feel lost, and people don't feel connected, and people don't feel like they are part of something that's larger than what they see every day. And hope doesn't come from what you see always in your house, but you got to see others. We need a larger community. We need a larger effort. We need more of this. We need more coming together to save our community. Our community is not going anywhere. There's always been gay people. There's always been queer people. There's always been. There's always been, and there always will be. And we are just as resilient as any other people. So we're always going to be there. But what we do together matters. And when we come together, it matters. And when we build up each other, it matters. And when we tear each other down, it matters. And so I really want us to be committed. I want all of us to be commissioners, not necessarily a part of this commission, but as a commission to make sure that all of us are okay, and that all of us feel loved, and that all of us feel included, because unfortunately, it's a lot of us that make a lot of us feel excluded. And it's not okay. So my work and my goal, and I run other nonprofits, and I pastor, and I do whatever I can do to make sure that I show up, because I know people feel a little sometimes better when I show up in the room. And so if we all did that, imagine how much better our city would be. If we all are commissioners, making sure that those who look like us and feel like us and are on the same path of us, if all of us do the work, our city will be better. It's not incumbent on the mayor, it's not incumbent on the county executive, it's incumbent on us to make us and our community what it needs to be. So that's my commitment, that's my commission, that's my goal, that's my vision, that we actually have a city that is safe, because we are all working together to make it safe, not just a few of us. And I want to applaud Adriana for organizing this event tonight. And I want to applaud all of you who actually showed up, because if you showed up, then that means that you care about us and about what happens to us. You know, it's you know, I mean, it's not even about him, it's about us. You know, it's about us. Because what we do matters. It doesn't matter what he does. And so I take my seat saying, I am who I am by the grace of God. I am not a mistake. I am not an error. I'm wonderful and fearfully made in God's image. So I celebrate myself. I celebrate you. And I celebrate what he's doing or what she's doing in my life. And so what she allows in my life is right and it's good.
Derek's making my life so hard. How am I supposed to follow something like that? Anyway, thank you. Can we have a round of applause to all our commissioners, please? Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So Derek was reading my mind, apparently, when I made this presentation, because the very next slide is how all of you can get involved if you're interested in being a commissioner. There's actually 2 seats that are open on the commission right now for the public. You would have to submit an application on our Engage page. I also wanted to just inform people on the process that if you submit an application, you can go through an interview process if your qualifications match the seat, similar to Lenny is our education person, and so there's seats specifically around health and wellness and things like that related to the commission. And then after you're interviewed, you'd have to be approved by city council, usually a pretty painless process, and then you are a commissioner. So I just wanted to give transparency there as to how our commissioners become commissioners. And I will make this entire presentation available on our website in case any of you want to see it later as well. One is for community members broadly, and the other one I believe is related to legality and laws, legislation. So yeah, the person that was in that role before was a lawyer, for context. So yes. So if you're interested, I would love to see your applications. As some of our commissioners were talking about, it's sometimes hard to organize in our community. They're very spread out in Pittsburgh. And so I want to take advantage of an opportunity like tonight to let people know that there's an opportunity to also be a voice in city government and advocate on behalf of our community. So I also wanted to hit on some of the current focus areas for the commission. As I said, we've made a lot of changes over the last year, and so these are the current things we are working on within city government. And so we have 2 recommendations right now. One is to designate all single stall restrooms within city facilities as unisex restrooms. We are working with DPW and some of our city departments to identify those restrooms and be able to write some legislation, work with council to be able to allocate those as unisex restrooms. The other recommendation they made was to, for any new buildings or large renovations that the city is having in their facilities, to include a unisex restroom. Obviously, that is not going to deal with all bias or all prejudice when it comes to trans and non-binary folks being able to use the bathroom that they identify with, but we want to make sure that everybody has a safe space to be able to use facilities and be able to be comfortable in any of our city facilities. The other thing I wanted to say is, I mentioned it before, but we have Know Your Rights cards. Please, I know some folks might have to leave early. They are on the table over there along with my business card if you have any questions that you want to ask of me specifically. And we are also working on an internal policy to ensure that all of our city employees are getting sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression training. We have many, many, many queer folks that are in city government. We want to ensure that when they're working with coworkers, with supervisors, with managers, that they are being respected, that their pronouns and their identities are being validated, and that they aren't feeling like they have to be a part of themselves or they have to minimize themselves within their workspaces. And lastly, and I put this over here because, as we said before, city government has kind of 2 functions: direct impact, the things we can definitely have an impact on the left, and then on the right are the things we can say as a body of influence. And so those are things like making statements, both positive, positive statements, like we are supporting the ordinance that Barb Warwick's office is writing with local advocates to reduce the penalty around sex work. Those local advocates just came to the commission on Tuesday to give their presentation, and the commissioners agreed to not only support it, but write a letter of support so that when they are bringing this ordinance to council, that they can see that this is very important to our community. And then I also want to say that we are creating right now a statement to denounce any higher education institutions that are minimizing or erasing language that is specifically supposed to be inclusive of trans and non-binary folks. So you suddenly only putting LGB instead of all of the other letters is definitely concerning to us, and we are going to denounce that. We don't have oversight on those institutions, but we can make our voices heard to ensure they know that this is not acceptable to our community. So I wanted to really take a moment tonight to talk about some of the efforts in all of city government that have happened over the last few years, but really over the last 2 or 3, that specifically are addressing either the needs of our community or are specifically targeting our community members. And the first one, and I think is very important, is housing. We understand that housing, first of all and foremost, many folks in our community experience being unhoused at some point or another. They also very often experience being low income, and so we want to make sure that not only we are thinking about housing options for folks that are experiencing homelessness, but also ensuring that options are affordable for folks. So just a few things I want to point out here. We specifically supported efforts to secure $4 million in funding to help build Mosaic Apartments. I believe that's in Oakland? Yes. And that is specifically LGBTQ senior housing. Yes, absolutely. So that is incredibly important. We want to make sure that all members of our community have housing, but specifically our seniors, that their needs are being addressed and that they have opportunities to get affordable senior housing that is validating and protecting their identities. We also have been working on inclusionary zoning. There was a big hubbub about it quite a few weeks ago, but that's really about ensuring that any new buildings that are coming in, especially if they have over 20 units, that they have to include affordable housing units within that 10% of, at least 10% of the units they are building have to be affordable. So we are ensuring that they are not just building huge high rises that are only for folks that make thousands and thousands of dollars and can put most of their money towards that rent. And we also have a rental registry that is helping us to identify landlords that are predatory or in any way kind of unfairly treating their residents. And so we can get information about them, contact them, and address those issues. And lastly, but definitely not least, the mayor has partnered with County Executive Sarah Innamorato on the 500 and 500, which is all about ensuring that we are providing transitional housing to folks that have been in a shelter for a long period of time so that we can open up those beds to folks that may be on the street or experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And so those are just a few things that we are doing when it comes to expanding housing, but that does not mean that is the end all be all, and we will continue working towards ensuring that our community has access to safe and secure and affordable housing. The other thing I wanted to bring up is how we are celebrating identity. And so I've had a few folks sending questions about what we're doing for Pride or how we're supporting Pride. I don't want to call out Dina, but she is here. But so when it comes to celebrating identity, so the first thing I wanted to bring up was Pride. We were able to allocate $100,000 to Pride last year as a one-time kind of payment. We kind of took it out of our savings, our storeway kind of fund to be able to support Pride. The budget process can be very difficult, and so we have to do everything about a year in advance, and that was something that we were able to make happen to ensure we were supporting Pride. To be more proactive this year, we are ensuring that the Pride Planning Committee is meeting with our events planning committees to ensure that folks are getting whatever barriers or issues that they might be experiencing when they're planning Pride to be as smooth as possible. And so we're going to be working with them and also supporting with city resources as much as we possibly can. The other thing I also wanted to bring up is that we specifically have been leveraging partnerships with Visit Pittsburgh, so our tourism, well, they're an organization. Okay, so our tourism organization, we specifically, not to call Felicity out, but specifically is on our their board and has helped to develop a tourism strategy around specifically targeting our community. So we want to not only, ensure that the folks that are already here are safe, but we want to encourage other LGBTQIA folks to move here, to feel safe here, to feel welcome, and to know that they have a community here that will support them. Along with that, we have continuously created those strategies that are targeting our community members. If you go on Visit Pittsburgh website, there's literal strategies around LGBTQIA tourism, and I encourage you to look into that, especially when your friends are visiting from other cities. And lastly, when it comes to celebrating identity, the last thing I wanted to say is when we were developing the budget last year, I was very, very lucky to talk about the fact that I am from Philadelphia originally, and I don't want any judgment from that. No judgment whatsoever, but this is a judgment-free zone. But growing up in Philly, which has a very centralized, very large queer community, every October we had Outfest. So for Coming Out Month, it was usually something like a really big gay block party that we would do. It was trying, in many ways, some organizations can try to prey on our community with capitalism, especially during June. And so we really, at least in Philly, took that time in October to think very community-oriented. It was very much about local organizations and resources that are supporting our community members. It's supposed to be super family friendly and very fun. And so we are doing the same thing in Pittsburgh this year. We have allocated money in our budget. I'm working with our commissioners along with Dina and many other stakeholders within the city government and within the community to ensure that we are going to have the first Outfest in Pittsburgh this October. And I hope I see every single one of you there. And you will be getting an email. And lastly, when it comes to specifically how we are having more inclusion in action, I wanted to talk about something the mayor had pointed out, which is that we have our first LGBTQIA subcontractor on a city contract. We understand, yeah, absolutely. We know that many of our community members have had difficulty getting access to city contracts, to other economic opportunities. We want to make sure we are prioritizing them and that we are being more inclusive of them when we are developing projects and having city contracts. As well as working with the Rivers Business Alliance to ensure that we are incorporating those LGBTQIA businesses into future opportunities with the city. And last but not least, our legislative efforts. So one thing is that, and you talked a little bit about this as well, that we are a sanctuary city for gender affirming care. That means that if gender affirming care were to become illegal in Pennsylvania or in the country, we would do everything in our power not to enforce that. That can be difficult, definitely in situations where we don't have oversight on medical centers, but we are ensuring that when we do have power, that we are utilizing it to ensure that we are protecting our residents. And lastly, we have been working very hard over the last year, well, more than last year, but at least I specifically have been working to ensure that we are having more LGBTQIA voices on our city commissions, not just the LGBTQIA commission, but also as we were writing, amending the Gender Equity Commission's legislation, I did two very purposeful things. I included a seat for an LGBTQIA commissioner to always be able to advocate when it comes to gender equity. And I also ensured that the language of that ordinance was inclusive to all gender identities. Formally, it was very specific to women and female identified individuals, but we understand that trans folks, non-binary folks, and men all have a gender identity. And so we want to ensure that when we're talking about gender, that everybody has a voice to be able to advocate for gender equity. And so those are some things I wanted to point out. Last but not least, and as kind of a transition into the Know Your Rights work, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Human Rights Campaign's Municipality Equality Index, which is a mouthful, and I will say that. In layman's terms, it is an annual report that they do on most of the large cities in America to evaluate how inclusive they are being for LGBTQIA residents. For at least the last 5 years, Pittsburgh has gotten 100, which is wonderful. Thank you. That does not mean things are perfect. That does not mean that we do not have gaps. That does not mean that we don't have more work to do. It just means that we are continuing to strive for a more welcoming and safe city for our LGBTQIA residents. And so you can find that information anywhere, but they evaluate things like how law enforcement works with our community, how our services work with our community, how we are as an employer, if we are inclusive, things like ensuring that our insurance plans include gender-affirming care for any trans or non-binary folks that are city employees. So I encourage you to look into that because it is really, really important as a snapshot as to how we are continuing to work towards a more inclusive and welcoming city.
I just want to say thank you. You've done a phenomenal job. You know, I tell people this all the time. You know, when you find somebody that's in love with their work, the screen went blank, but she never skipped a beat. See, that's a different type of love. You don't need notes when you love it like that. You can look at your notes as a reminder, but when it's in your heart and your spirit, you really don't need too much to read. All you gotta do is look at your bullet points and keep going. So I just want to recognize you did a phenomenal job. Hey y'all, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mayor Gainey, and I'm so happy you could join us here tonight to show that solidarity with our community. Right before we go into Know Your Rights, I first of all want to appreciate everybody for sticking out, for listening to all of this, to getting a better understanding of our commissioners and the work of the commission and the city government and how we are going to continue centering LGBTQIA voices regardless of what is happening on a federal or a statewide basis. I am going to ask that we have some folks from the Commission on Human Relations come up and talk a little bit about how you report discrimination, talk a little bit about protected classes and what that process looks like for any folks that experience discrimination within the city of Pittsburgh. And I really want to emphasize that it has to happen in the city limits for the Commission on Human Relations to be able to address it. And so I am going to welcome up Kevin. Wonderful.
Adrian.
My name's Kevin Carroll, he, him. I'm the administrative person for the Commission on Human Relations. I'm also on the LGBTQIA Commission. I joined because, I got into the commission because I'm an example of a boomerang type of Pittsburgher. I lived away for 7 years. I came back and the city changed in a lot of different ways. And I got into local government because I think it's good for local government to have a service and actually give back and do something for people and not just take your money. But yeah, me and Rachel can talk a little bit about what the commission actually does. You know, you can, if you go through the commission, you're probably going to interact with me at one point or another. Either I'm like a bookend kind of person, so through the process, the investigation. But Rachel can talk to you more about the actual protections. But yeah, employment, housing, public accommodations, which is like businesses, parks, any public space, and civil rights as well, which includes city services. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Rachel Shepard with the Commission on Human Relations. I go by she, her pronouns, and I'm the executive director now for going on 2 years, but I've been with the commission for almost a decade in varying capacities. Kevin's been with us. He calls himself a bookend person, but we really could not function without the things that he does. So could we give him another round, please? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so we're the Civil Rights Enforcement Agency for the City of Pittsburgh. So anything that goes on within the City of Pittsburgh limits, we want to know about it if it's discriminatory, because we have connections all over. We would like to be able to refer people to the right place if it's not something that we can handle, but Kevin already covered it. We cover employment discrimination, and actually with the employment discrimination, we are currently in the process of taking intakes as well, so you can file your case with us if it happens to be just outside the city limits where the harm occurred, and we can get that transferred to the EEOC for you and get that investigated. They currently have a pretty long wait time to get an intake because things are not great out there, I'm sure you know. We also cover housing. Housing is very important here in the city of Pittsburgh. Adriana covered a lot of that, and a lot of the others spoke about that. We cover the discrimination both with rental and purchase of housing. We don't see as much with the purchase of housing on individual complaint basis, but you can file with us on that. And we do cover the sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression in all of the areas that we serve. So if it is an employment, if it's a public accommodation, if you've been turned away because you are non-gender conforming and they don't want to serve you, that is a public accommodation discrimination matter, and you can absolutely file that with the commission. Adriana already covered the service area. So the City of Pittsburgh municipality, we cover that area physically. So it's wherever the harm occurred. You don't have to live in Pittsburgh to file. The harm just had to happen here because that is where we can control what happens. We're lucky enough to have a city code and we're empowered by the Home Rule Charter to add our own protections. So we do have things like sexual orientation. We've had that since 1990. Which is a very long time when you consider that Bostock was just in 2021, and that added it on the federal level under the basis of sex. We've had gender identity and expression since 2014, which is also, over a decade now, but we see very few complaints on these bases. We want everyone to know that these protections are here for you, that the City of Pittsburgh prioritizes its vulnerable residents, and that in the time that we are in, where the federal government is talking about gender ideology and how toxic it is and how we need to just focus on the binary, there is no binary. Like, let's be real. We need to lift each other up for who we actually are and accept everyone as they are. And we're doing that here in Pittsburgh. So if someone is not inclusive of that, please report it to the commission. I want to say that it's a free process. It can be very intimidating, and I know that there is a very real hierarchy of needs for the people in Pittsburgh. If you are at risk of losing your housing because you're making a complaint, that's a very real threat to you, right? That's a real damage that can happen to you. And I understand why people don't come to us, because it's harder to find a new place to live than it is to just live with being harassed. I'm sure most of us know from real experience what that's like. Same thing with employment. If you can't find a new job at the drop of a hat so you can keep paying your rent, you're not going to make a complaint because you don't want to stir the pot. What I want to say, though, is that if you say nothing, it will continue. It will continue, and there will be nothing that we can do about it. We as an agency enforce the city code. We enforce federal law. And we're one of the few commissions that exists in the country that can actually do that. There are many commissions that can only make recommendations, and they can just go to die at the feet of a judge who doesn't agree. But with our commission, we actually have that enforcement power. We can take things to court if we need to. We hope not to have to, but we will. Because everyone deserves to feel like they have a safe space, and we want Pittsburgh to be that safe space. The protections that we offer in the city of Pittsburgh go well beyond what the federal level offers. It goes beyond what they're currently trying to roll back on the federal level. Please come to us if you have questions. We are always available to talk with you if you have any kind of question about your housing situation, or did this public service really discriminated against me? Is this really a problem? We take every case seriously. Kevin can tell you he speaks with just about everyone that comes through our doors to take information from them, and we take everything seriously. We will review everything just as thoroughly, regardless of what the protected status is. And we have 16 of them in the city of Pittsburgh, by the way. So that, again, goes well beyond the federal level. We do offer, as a government agency, language interpretation and translation for our immigrant and refugee community. We want to acknowledge that there is intersectionality, the way Adriana already represented. Everyone in this room is covered by some protected class or another, and there is lots of intersectionality there. That is the one thing that we see at the commission most often is cross-filed complaints, where it's not just about your gender identity, it's about your race as well. We hear a lot of those sorts of things. And we want to make sure that you feel represented for all of them. So if you come to the commission, we are a safe space. We will not share information with anyone if you don't want us to. We do take contact information, but we will never ask about citizenship or immigration status. That is not something the city of Pittsburgh does, and we're not going to start now. Thank you. People who already feel marginalized should not feel fear when going to advocate for themselves. And we firmly believe that. We will meet you where you are. We do lots of lots of virtual meetings now because since COVID, it's made our lives very easy. It's made it a lot more comfortable for people because we are in the city-county building. A lot of folks don't feel comfortable coming into government buildings for whatever reason. And we'll meet you where you are. We'll come out into the community. And what I want to highlight is we're here tonight because we were invited by the LGBTQIA plus commission. And I'm so thankful that you all have a full roster now. Like, I know you're looking for 2 more people, but it's so close. And I'm so happy to hear that because it can be such a struggle. It's exactly like Adriana said, if you can't make quorum, you can't do business. And we've been in that position ourselves. And it's a very real threat to the rights of the people of Pittsburgh. So thank you all for contributing to this process, for being here tonight, for lifting up the fact that this commission exists, both ours and the LGBT commission, because we want to acknowledge that everyone has their space, they have their expertise, and we want to support each other. So if you have any room for us at your table to give any kind of education at your workplace or with your friend group, or, we'll come out pretty much anywhere. I mean, I haven't been invited to a bar yet, but I'd come. I would do it. But yeah, we're all about educating, we're about collaborating, and we're about enforcing. We want to enforce the law so that you can feel safe to be who you are, where you are.
If they have questions, is it okay to ask now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, please.
So I work at It's Free Pittsburgh, and I continuously get calls from people who speak like, I don't want to say this incorrectly, they're from Nepal, or they're from like other Southeast Asian areas or like other Asian countries. When they call, typically it is for housing. Do you have individuals who go in the courtroom with them to translate, or are they just going there on their own?
If it's a housing discrimination matter and they come to us, we can absolutely provide interpretation and translation. If it goes beyond the discrimination matter and it's more of a landlord-tenant thing, we can try to get them connected. We have, we work very closely with Global Wordsmiths. One of their staff is on one of our commissioners, And we can absolutely try to get people connected to what they need so that they can have what they need. But honestly, the court should be providing that.
The court does.
Yeah, they're legally obligated. I know that we've had an executive order recently, though, dubbing English the official language of the United States, and rolling back the fact that, you know, anyone who receives federal dollars needs to provide interpretation or translation. But that is not the case with the city of Pittsburgh. We will continue to provide that, and we also have information on our commission. We have the Know Your Rights cards as well, because they're pocket size. Like, it's awesome. You can just grab it and go. But we have those in I think 15 different languages, and Nepali is one of them. So if anybody ever needs that information, you know where to find
Do you
us.
have a card? And I know you all said that they should be doing that, but obviously they're not because they're calling me. So that's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And may I have your card?
There should be cards
I brought a couple in my pocket. Can do that. Yeah, there are some. I have additional resources in the back. I was in the back this whole time, so I didn't want to like crowd up here, but I have our Know Your Rights cards. It covers the full expanse of the protected classes that we cover, all 16 of them. It covers like how to identify if it's illegal discrimination, how to contact us, all of the information. And actually, if you're interested in additional information that goes beyond the sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, anything on the sex basis, please come to our commission meeting. We're having our own commission meeting on April 7th. We have them every month on the first Monday, but we're going to be meeting out in North Side at the library to give people an idea of what the local protections are, just the full expanse of civil rights protections here in the city of Pittsburgh, and look at some of the up-and-coming protections that we are looking to add to the city code so that we can protect additionally marginalized people. Yes.
In terms of enforcing protections, as we know, it's the law of the land at the city, state, and federal level that gender-affirming care is safe, effective, and legal. But our medical providers in the city are not providing it. They have ceased to preemptively comply with federal policies that are not in effect. And my question is, does that not contradict with city and state non-discrimination protections that prohibit medical providers from denying care on the basis of gender identity? And if so, what can we do to enforce that?
Is this in regards to children
So we were looking into this a lot more earlier today because I wanted to be accurate when we were talking about minors, right? So I wasn't able to find anything specifically about minors, but in general, a hospital is a place of public accommodation, and you can file a complaint on that basis, because if there is no law in place and they have no non-discriminatory legitimate business reason for what they're doing, it's discrimination. So yes, I would advise that anybody who's experiencing that, please call us, because every case is just unique on its own. We want to be able to give you the full time and attention of what your particular situation is so that we can assess and see if there's something we can do for you.
I am wondering if intentional and pervasive den naming and misgendering is discrimination in the city.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Just yes. Yeah, it's one thing if you just met the person and you have a shortcut in your brain based on how somebody looks, and you say something and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. If they are repeatedly doing that, and we see this a lot with employers will dead name you or just intentionally use the incorrect pronouns just to get at you, and that is harassment.
So the sanctuary laws, will those work as safe haven as well for people who are trying to escape, where it's dangerous now?
I think that's more of a question for our administrative folks. I'm not sure if... No, that's okay. It all really intersects, right? Like, we're looking at discriminatory, things and people feeling fear and going to places where they can feel safe. And, it's hard to know, right? Felicity, did you want to... I can give you
So first and foremost, I want to say that talking about earlier, some of the efforts we're doing to ensure that not only the current residents we have here are feeling welcome, but also other LGBTQIA folks that are in states that are not friendly to their rights or to their protections or anything along their humanity. We also want to welcome them to be here, to move here if they want to. And absolutely anything under what the protections are for CHR are going to apply to them as well. So if they move here and if you identify as a trans woman and you go to rent an apartment and they say, I'm not going to rent to you because I don't want any trans people as my tenants, that is still going to be something that CHR is going to be addressing. If they move here and they try to get a job and they say, hey, I don't like the way you express your gender, and so I don't want you to be in this position as a barista or something like that, then that is also something that CHR is going to be addressing. And so anybody, you don't have to be a resident of Pittsburgh. If you're experiencing discrimination while you are in the city, then you can go to CHR in that instance.
Is that countywide?
No, city.
I did want to make that distinction.
Here.
Yeah, so we do have the protections in the city of Pittsburgh. The county commission just got its ordinance updated so that it is like substantially equivalent. It has all the protections, but they are in the process of getting themselves up off the ground, getting their staff in place. And I can't wait to train their people and make sure that we have Allegheny County protected as well. If you can't file with the local commission, there are also still protections on the state level as well. There is a Pennsylvania Commission on Human Relations. You can always go there. If you don't know how to get in touch with them, we refer people all the time because, unfortunately, we just have a lot of things that happen just outside Pittsburgh's border that we can't handle.
Any other questions?
Kev, do you have anything that you want to add to anything that I've said? I feel like I just...
Yeah, just like the biggest thing you were talking about before is that like we don't ask any citizenship status questions. So that's like a big thing that people are hesitant about. And like interpretation is always big. So we can, deaf, hard of hearing people, we can help with that. And yeah, I mean, most languages, yeah. So.
Oh, here you go.
Yeah, I just have, my question is related to cybersecurity and attacks on our community. Only just the other day, I found out that a local trans business owner had her online accounts hacked and locked. I know that's not the first time that people in our community, activists in our community, are being targeted. What can we do to support those people and ensure that they don't face harassment?
I don't know what to say about the cybersecurity. Honestly, that comes up as it goes into a more criminal space, and that's not something that we can handle. Again, the discrimination is palpable in that situation, right? But it's not something that we can necessarily take because there's a more important, like pressing criminal matter that needs to be addressed with the hacking. Yeah. And the one thing that I forgot to mention before, you reminded me when you were talking about our language options, but we have the ability to create commission-initiated complaints. So if there's a particular group of people, or if you know that something's going on in a particular space, like if you know that there's a particular public service in the city of Pittsburgh that's not friendly and they are rejecting people from participating in an event or just to be present or to purchase goods, you can let us know that. And if we have enough information to go on, we can create our own commission-initiated complaint and you don't have to have your name on it. What else I'll say is that you can file on someone else's behalf. If you have a coworker that is in the LGBTQIA plus space and they are just in fear for their job, they don't want to lose their job, they don't want to lose their housing, they don't want to lose their income, and they're just terrified to do anything, you can, on your own volition, come to the commission and say, I know that this is happening, and we can look into it, and that protects that person from retaliation. Because that's one of the number one things that we see is if people come to file a complaint with us and have that investigation and find out, did this really happen, then an employer will, suddenly start issuing discipline, or they'll fire you. They'll cut your hours. A housing provider will file for eviction. And those are all really real consequences to filing a complaint. But what I'll say is one of the largest cases that the commission ever saw was based on an employee who saw discrimination happening, was not a member of the protected class, and reported it. And it ended up in a $500,000 settlement to cover all of the people that were harmed in that situation. So it's, that's not a thing that happens all the time, but you can make real change by bringing it to our attention. Thank you all so much for having us.
All right, thank you so much for CHR coming out tonight and really being able to talk very openly about the work that they do and the options that are available to any community members that are experiencing discrimination in housing, public accommodations, employment, or any city services. I When I was working with Rachel to figure out how the best way to kind of talk about our resources and the available options if you're experiencing discrimination, I asked very transparently. So absolutely, if I'm denied the ability to get housing or employment, that is a CHR problem. But what if somebody threatens me because of my identity? What if somebody assaults me? What do I do in those instances? And she was very clear about the fact that that is going to be very much within police. Now, I say that understanding that our community does have a difficult relationship with law enforcement. And I'm not going to minimize that in any way. That is why it is important for us to be able to have somebody like Commander Baker, who as a police officer and as a member of our community is able to address our needs and bridge those gaps. And so I would love him to come up for just a moment to introduce himself and talk a little bit about how he can help if you want some support or guidance in the instance that you might want to report to the police because you've experienced some sort of discrimination. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. And all the strife with the community and the police seems to be new. All this strife with the police and the community seems to be. I guess that's new to me. I didn't hear anything about that recently. No, it's unfortunately that is the case. And as long as people are involved, there'll always be differences of opinion. We just hope that they remain, just that, right? So yeah, we've just spoken about things like threats, physical assault, computer hacking. Those are criminal offenses. So the first step to reporting that, and this will provide relief to no one, is to file a police report. So why do I say that? One, if you've ever had the chance of dealing with government, you will know that it's not exactly the most efficient entity in America. Two, it takes such a long time to follow up on occasion. And three, more importantly for us, sometimes it puts us in a position where it puts members of our community in a position where they have to talk to the police. They have to see the police, invite them into their space, something like that. So I am pleased to actually announce here for the first time, we're about a week away from able to standing up our citizen online portal. So you'll never have to see me again. You'll never have to. You'll be able to go on a website yet to be named in the city, some domain yet to be named, and you can file your own report. And someone from our telephone reporting unit or a detective will follow up with you if they have further questions, and the case can be assigned. So that's a step in the right direction. I don't know, and I did ask at the time. Hey, when this project started a couple years ago, when we started to implement a new records management system, and I'd asked at the time, for options as far as gender, like what are we going to have? Are we going to have inclusive options? And at the time, I was absolutely, why not? And I don't tell you that because everyone is altruistic about it, but from a matter of fact standpoint, if someone identifies a certain way, don't you as an investigator, if you were my shoes, don't you want to know that, right? We need to know who that person may be and where they might be. So it may not always be altruistic, right? I can't be that pie in the sky. However, it does seem that given federal reporting standards and our transition to NIBRS, which is a very complicated way of reporting crime, that some of those options may have been curtailed, but I'm trying to get that narrowed down. So that is something that I would like to see happen. I was thrilled that there was an exhaustive list in the first place, and I don't know what that's going to look like now. But at the bare minimum, there will be an online reporting portal, and nothing prevents anyone from putting their pronouns or their gender identity and narrative of the report that they write. And also, I should back up. My pronouns are he, him. Okay. So I apologize. I am getting older, so I forget. Are there any questions about crime? Anything at all?
Hold on. I'm pretty loud. I was in the Army.
It's so that they can get it on camera.
So my first question is, when is this portal going to be available?
We're about a week away from it being live.
Okay. Now, who's going to look at these reports? Because my biggest fear is that, say I'm an individual reporting a crime and I do check box that I am Black trans woman or a non-binary individual, and person looking at report now just deletes. Like, that's my biggest fear, is that even though I report it online to alleviate the anxiety of being misgendered and stuff in the station, I just want to know, because I don't want it to just be like a regular Joe deputy and they're just like, oh, ta-ta.
Well, I'm going to give you the honest answer, which again, provide you no relief whatsoever. Okay. The good news is the report cannot be deleted.
Oh.
So that's great. But we have a real record keeping problem in the sense of there's a lot of laws that govern government record keeping first off, and then we sort of have this archaic fashion of just like whatever it is, we're going to keep it for 25 years in a box somewhere. So it can't be deleted, but can it be deprioritized by somebody? Yeah, it could, absolutely.
I do appreciate the portal though, because at least
Yeah.
it's a step in the correct direction.
Yeah, I mean, where does that route in the specifics of that? Could someone, could an investigator go in there, read it, not like it, do a supplemental report and say, maybe this wasn't a crime, maybe hey, it wasn't a crime's person, like person against a person, it was a vandalism or something, criminal mischief. Could they do that? Yeah, they could. There's no doubt.
Commander Baker, I have a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
When they file in the portal, will they get a copy of the report emailed to them?
Not immediately. It needs to be vetted. So once there is a approval process, you'll get, hey, your report's approved. Here's the reporting number. I think you get the reporting number right away.
Yeah.
And obviously, you can always have access to your reports down at the municipal court building, so you can always see what's in there.
So you would have a record of it as well. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah.
Does anyone else have questions?
So I'm new in town, newish.
Welcome.
I thank you. I have not had any interactions with police here
I'm sorry.
yet. And I'm just curious what, in your experience, what the culture is like in the Pittsburgh police force around LGBTQ issues. How supportive is the general vibe like?
So I think in my career, that's an interesting question, and it's funny you ask. I had this conversation with a coworker today, who we were talking about something completely unrelated, and stopped the conversation and said, "Hey, can I ask you a question if it doesn't leave this room?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. Yeah, what's up? Assuming you're not confessing to triple murder. But yeah, what's up?" And they told me that, they told me that a member of their family had just identified as transgendered, and they were trying to figure out, how to navigate that space, right? And, that got us talking about the recent history of the police bureau and in our community. So there are other male gay members of the community, and I make that specification just because in my career, anecdotally, it always had seemed that some of the lesbians were a little bit more accepted at the time within the culture, but the gay men were not. There were a few that were older. The chief that just left, Larry Scarato, he was gay, very all over the place. He's out there. Still is, still gay. Didn't change, still gay, as far as I know. Jason Lando, he's now the chief of Frederick, Maryland. He was a police commander, and he was gay as well, still is, now married. And there was a couple more somewhere along the line. But I think at the time when I started in 2009, I was the only one that was out. Mainly because I had been in the infantry, and I really didn't care. I really don't have time for whatever it is. Right? It's, fine, sure. So I think as the department has gotten younger, I think that's gotten better. But I can tell you, I'd like to say it's not that long ago, 15 years ago when I started, there was not exactly a party. It's not exactly a party now, right? I think culture is a tricky thing when you talk about organizations like law enforcement where groupthink is a real problem, right? And you really need a strong personality to withstand that or break out of that. I think it's better. I don't think it's perfect, right? I don't think I'm perfect. So maybe that provides you no relief. Where are you from?
Portland, Oregon.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
you know, just straight. You're welcome. Moved here for the weather then, right? Lovely. Lovely.
Does anybody else have questions?
I guess my question is there a separate or different process if the police are the ones that are harassing you? And or what is... What's that? Okay, thank you. That's the answer to that question. And then if people like experience that once they have reported, is that the same answer? Do people go to the Commission on Human Relations if the officer or officers that are handling their complaint?
If they like disregard it?
Yes.
Yes. That would be
So, yeah, you certainly can report to CHR. I think I support that. In the past, not this current group of commissioners. Prior to this role, I was the chief policy officer for the department. So oftentimes we would get things referred to us from CHR like, hey, this person filed a complaint. We sort of investigated it. OMI, which is our Office of Municipal Investigation, investigated it. And like, there seems to be a policy gap here. Can you work on something, right? So no doubt that's an appropriate avenue for you. But I would also encourage you to file a complaint with the Office of Municipal Investigations. Okay. So that is our, for lack of a better word, our internal affairs, right? That being said, any police supervisor is obligated to take that complaint. Okay, and if that doesn't happen, my email address has been printed on some card. So please take it. I need to know about that. I need to know if a complaint's not being taken seriously. And I need to know if there's an unprofessional interaction with law enforcement in addition to OMI. Now, there's also another body. It does not have power to discipline police, but the Citizens Police Review Board is another avenue. So I'm sure Beth Pittenger's been around here for a long time. She's the longest serving executive director of a Citizens Police Review Board in America. So we're lucky to have her. So that's another avenue for reporting. And myself, of course, yeah.
Will we see the City of Police at Pride this year? Or will you all be supporting it in some capacity?
I will be there.
Not you.
I don't know if I'm working. I'd rather not. So if you could not ask. Yeah, like it's sort of like, being the LGBTQ liaison for the police department is interesting. It's definitely like, there's an event with the community. Throw him out there, right? Get him out there. Let's go, right? And I'm sure that everyone here could probably experience something similar with their employer. So I'd like it if I didn't have to work that day or that weekend or the 3 days after. So I'd like. So.
What about the police presence as a whole? Because.
So I think there is a. As far as the parade goes, I mean, I'm always happy. So actually, my actual job is not fully just being the liaison. I'm the commander of special deployment. So that's just a fancy way of saying anything that doesn't really fit in a box falls under me. So like motorcycle cops, the mounted unit, the tactical teams, stuff like that, the bomb squad. So I'm always happy to have the horses come. Everyone likes horses. Also too, at the Pride event itself, I think that and actually, ironically, I also sit on the special events committee. So I also do that. Yeah. So that's also part of my job, public safety planning. So we've also worked with Pride organizers in the past about how to have law enforcement present, but not present, right? Like I don't. So that's a balancing act, right? And that's like I go back and forth. That's something I go back and forth all the time. That's the thing that keeps me up at night. Is stuff like that, where you live in a world where what's happening to us at the federal level is happening, and then you read in the paper, hey, there was a attack with a vehicle in this country or in this city or New Orleans, right? And you try to balance, how do you keep people safe without making it feel like they're in a police state, right? And something that people in Pittsburgh are not used to seeing, like culturally, is if you go to Times Square for New Year's Eve, right? You're going to see a lot of cops with a lot of weapons. Like culturally here, we do not normally walk around and see police strapped with a assault rifle just standing there eating a churro, right? There's probably something going on if they have that out, right? So it's a kind of a culture shock. So that is a balancing act, right? And I haven't really found it yet.
I appreciate the honesty.
Oh yeah, you'll get. I'm a complete failure. You'll get nothing but honest. You'll get nothing honest from me. Honesty from me. Yeah.
Can I add to that point?
Of course.
Obviously, nobody in this room needs the explanation as what Commander Baker was talking a little bit about of the history of Pride and thus the police. And so, absolutely, that's a balancing act. From my understanding, and I don't want to misspeak, and if anybody can correct me, I'm more than happy to have that happen. But it's usually the Pittsburgh police working on like the perimeter of Pride to ensure that something like people are not driving into folks that are celebrating and things like that. But then usually the Pride organizers have security that are internal to the festival itself. They're usually plain clothes, so that you're not feeling like anybody is like walking around kind of militant or anything along those lines. But that is kind of usually how Pride festivals are planned, to ensure that there isn't too much police presence, being mindful of our culture and the history of our community, but also ensuring that we are safe. And so I just wanted to kind of add on to that.
Yeah, that's well stated. Well stated. Great idea.
I know we're low on time, but my question stems from that as well. So, post an event, I know that we're saying that the police are going to try to be non-discriminatory, but can you speak to the active, protective activities that you guys are doing, like say for Pride, like investigating people that might be planning to do something, and can you talk about the active things the police are doing to prevent those types of things?
Sure. Yeah. So we have a pretty robust intelligence unit. They've been around for a while. It's one of the. We have I think it's 1, 2, 3. We have at least 3 TFOs with our federal partners as it concerns that sort of thing, finding and trying to identify threats early on. The challenge is, right, first we have to know about it, right? But obviously not everyone is comfortable reporting, or not everyone thinks someone is serious until they are, right? So the challenge is this, right? Bureaucracies, of which we are very, very good at solving complicated problems because they're predictable. They're not so great at solving complex problems and adapting. Okay, so as the nature of threats against groups, marginalized groups, has changed, so too have to be the tactics of investigation, right? It's something that police work by its nature tends to be reactive, right? And another thing too, if you ever, and I digress. If you're ever somewhere and you hear a police officer say that they can't do something for you because they're short-staffed or they're too busy, I want to know about that too. Because I guarantee you I'll find them sleeping somewhere. All right. Okay. So, you know, solving complex problems requires nimbleness and adaptability. Something that we are rushing to try to obtain. So what I would say the best way to help us is you see something, say something, right? And that's kind of a throwaway phrase, but you know, truly, there's a lot of instances over the years where had one person picked up the phone, and quite frankly, sometimes had the right cop answered it, right, the worst wouldn't have happened. So, you know, I encourage everyone to stay vigilant and take reasonable precautions for your safety. Yeah.
Thank you. Of course.
How did this get so small? Hi, it's fine. Thank you so much, Commander Baker. Thank you to CHR. Thank you to our commissioners. Thank you to True T for giving us this beautiful space. I mean, phenomenal. Also want to thank Dirty Bird's Chicken for giving us the food. If there are any other questions that are broad, kind of to specifically to, I guess, city government, not necessarily CHR or police, more than happy to take them. I know we're over time, but I just want to give that flexibility to folks. If you have a question? Yeah.
Hi, sorry, I know we want to go home. But in compliance with the city's sanctuary city ordinances, is the city and specifically the city solicitor prepared to not comply with right to know requests regarding gender affirming care? And are there any policies around that as we see those attacks coming?
So I'm going to give you this. So I'm going to give this to my boss because she'll have a better answer than I will.
Hi, as Adriana said, Felicity Williams, Deputy Chief of Staff for the Mayor. So we are actually joining either as co-filing or submitting amicus briefs in I think like 7 cases against the federal government right now, and we are continuing to review those on a regular basis, ranging from things around our immigrant communities, ranging from things around our LGBTQIA plus communities. So our solicitor is very much committed to and excited about, of course, along with our administration broadly, about taking on those legal fights and challenging those sorts of things, and we're already actively doing it now.
Does anybody else have any questions before we close out? Okay, well, thank you for coming out tonight. As I said towards the beginning, I know it can be really hard to find a centralized place for us to meet and talk and actually have these really difficult discussions as a community. And I really appreciate everybody coming authentically and talking about the things that really matter to them. I hope we can have more of these in the future and that we have as many community members as possible that are involved in these sorts of events. I am sorry that my PowerPoint died. I'm really sad. I worked so hard on it, guys. I can't even. I was up so late messing with that thing. But please, before you leave, grab some resources. Feel free to take any food before you go. And please contact me if you have any questions related to anything here. Oh, yes. As I said prior, the presentation will be posted. As I said before, if you have any questions or concerns or you want to know more about anything we talked about tonight, please reach out to me, adriana.brannon@pittsburghpa.gov. My contact information is back there along with CHR's number and email as well as Commander Baker's email. So please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be here for a minute, but thank you again for coming out tonight, and I hope to see you all soon. Please be safe.